Imagine yourself as an individual from the late 1920s. You are financially stable, you just bought a car on credit, you invest in the stock market, and you're able to buy an assortment of goods based on credit. Now imagine that's all ripped away from you in the day. On October 24th, 1929, a date that is coined Black Tuesday, that date signifies the start of the Great Depression. So in this speech, I'm going to outline the causes of the Great Depression, impacts it had on the American people, and 2 specific lessons that can be learned from it. In Brian Duignan's article, Causes of the Great Depression, he states 3 major causes of it. Number 1, overextension of stockholders. Number 2, banking panics. Number 3, decreased international lending and tariffs. So after World War I, the American economy was booming, and it was popular during that time to invest in stocks, as it was an easy way to make quick money. So what these individuals would do would be they take out loans in order to buy these stocks, and then they pay back those loans with the money they earned from the stocks. And so when the stock market fell, the value of the stocks declined rapidly, and people were not able to pay back these loans, and so they would lose their houses and their materials. So in number 2, banking panics goes along with number 1, is individuals, after they realized that their value in stock decreased, they would take out their money because they were worried they'd lose it, and so that crippled the banks and crippled the economy ultimately, because banks were not able to invest and individuals no longer trusted the stock markets to make them money. So number 3, the U.S. economy was taking on a downward spiral, and so in order to help American businesses, they passed the Smoohaley Tariff Act, which raised taxes on incoming goods to support American businesses, which ultimately decreased international investing and trading overall. And so while there are many causes and possible causes of the Great Depression, these are 3 major causes that most economists can agree on. Locally, the American people were also unprepared for this, as well as the government. Before the Great Depression happened and Black Tuesday, according to Dr. Thayer Watkins, who got his PhD at Colorado State University, 32% of Americans were unemployed. And so during the 1930s, we can see that it jumps to 8%, and it continues that steep incline till it reaches 25% unemployment. And so this is my visual aid, and you can tell that there was a huge jump in unemployment and then a gradual decrease in unemployment across a 10-year span. And so that was very tough on the American people, as they couldn't make money and support their wives and their children and their families. As well, African Americans were hit worst of all, as 50% were unemployed, as most jobs went to whites, as racism was prevalent at that time as well. And so you can imagine 1 out of every 2 African Americans being unemployed, how that could impact their society, and how every 1 in 4 could impact our culture in the white society. And so this affected the family dynamic, as wives and children had to go work. Khan Academy described the times with these words: "Out of work, Americans filled long bread lines, begged for food, or sold apples on street corners. A Chicago social worker wrote that we saw want and despair walking the streets, and our friends' sensible, thrifty families reduced to poverty." And so the Great Depression was a terrible time for the American people, but it did end, and we did get through it. And so there are 2 major lessons that we can learn from it. number one is that government should have a hand if the basic market fails in the American economy. And this was outlined by the dynamic of President Hoover and President FDR. Hoover's main idea was that the government left on its own could get itself out of any decline in the economy. And many people were not happy with that because that didn't give them aid and didn't provide shelter and food for them. Once FDR came in, he provided things like the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, which provided them employment as they worked on different projects across America that helped society overall, including the creation of parks and different things like that. And so the second major theme is that overextension of investing in stocks can lead to bankruptcy. And this leads to the fact that you should only spend what you can afford. So you should focus on the basic necessities when you're buying things and then use your surplus to invest. And therefore you can't get into trouble when you go to take out loans and incur lots of debt. And so only buy what you need. So overall in this speech, I'd like to reiterate my main points. First, the Great Depression was a serious and terrible time for the American people, and unemployment was rapid, but it did end, and there were two major lessons that we can learn from it: how the government should be involved if the market fails, and that Americans should only spend what they can make. And so the next time you think about buying a car or taking out a loan of any kind, just remember the mistakes of the past so that you don't make those same mistakes in the future. Thank you.